Hey, we appreciate you guys for being here. This is round three of the Be the Voice, Be the Change Town Hall meetings. And today we have a beautiful, a dope panel of guests today. Once again, my friend, my co-host D is helping me put this thing together. Thank you, D. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man. Let's get into this.
My name is D Smith. I'm sitting here representing One Body NT and 719 Nightlife.
Oh, that was all right. That was a good introduction, D. Anybody else want to go ahead?
My name is Promise Lee. I'm the current pastor of Relevant Word Ministries, and I'm literally sitting down. D said he was sitting down, but I believe he's standing up.
Yeah.
I'm Calvin Johnson. I'm the campus pastor at Emmanuel, 1 South Walnut. Just happen to be brothers and friends with Pastor Lee, so that's where my credibility comes from, or the lack thereof.
I am Vernell Murphy. I pastor Issues of Life Church Ministries in Security, Colorado, part of the
Awesome.
Concerned Clergy Coalition.
And once again, thank you all for taking your time out and being here. I do this for myself as an education and for the community, for them to be educated, to see what we can do, to be the voice, to be the change. My thing is, I have children, and I don't want my children to have to go through the same thing that I'm going through now, that obviously other generations have gone through. We're past that, you know what I'm saying? And I think this town hall that we're doing is bringing a lot of voices, a lot of powerful voices together to let the community know what we can do together to make a change, to be the change. And I appreciate you guys being here. Now, you all are a part of the Concerned Clergy Coalition. Can you explain to me and everybody else exactly what that is?
I'll defer to Pastor Calvin.
Well, we've had several different ministerial entities that have been here and have been formed, and the reason why we have convened this entity is simply because we just felt like the other organizations weren't being as effective and as relevant as we need to be as clergy. Because of course, in all movements, clergies need to be involved, and especially, Black clergy, we need to be involved, and pastors need to be involved, and we need to be able to work together without, people having a personal agenda. And so this group in particular is one that has a collective agenda, and we want to be able to address issues that concern our people.
Well, you just basically answered the question that I was going to ask. Is if there are other clergy groups, so why have another group? But you answered that.
Well, and again, I think that both Pastor Lee and Pastor Murphy can speak to that as well, because they come at it from different perspectives also.
So the question is, why start another clergy if there's others already out there?
Because sometimes the vision and the mission is different. So there are other clergies, but they may be called to do something different, which is still maybe effective in the community, but not reaching every area of the community. I don't believe there's one group that can reach it all. So oftentimes there have to be subgroups or other entities that could really tap into areas that may not be challenged or brought to an awareness, or areas that may not be looked upon, so to speak, that the other groups may not really tap into it. And so now another clergy group could help carry the load and help fulfill those areas in our community that may not be fulfilled at that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if I could piggyback on what was just said, I certainly concur, and I think that even as we look at churches and ministries, some ministries are called to mission, some ministries are called to food pantries, some ministries are called to basic needs, some other, and so it's the same thing with various ecclesiastical organizations and groups.
Awesome.
And we should be working together. We should be working together every time we can. All these social ills happen to intersect at one point or another. So when they do intersect, we should be able to work together.
How long has your clergy been together, and what has your group done so far in the community?
This is a rebirth of something that was put together 25 years ago when things in Colorado Springs were similar to what they are now. And back then it was called Concerned. It did the work that needed to be done, addressed the issues that needed to be addressed back then, and there was little need for it for a while. So to date, we just ramped back up a little bit less than a year ago, and we've been involved in a lot of things. One of the things particularly has been the Devon Bailey, Justice for Devon Bailey. We've been advocates of this new bill that was passed. In fact, we've been proponents. We've been at the forefront of that. There are other things that we're focusing on, which is the economic development in our city, which oftentimes excludes people of color in various zip codes and other minority groups. So, yeah, we've been involved in quite a bit. And there's other things that we're currently involved in and have been involved in that we just don't want to share right now. You'll see it evolve.
That's cool.
Well, we see that the CCC is gender exclusive. So, Pastor Murphy, how and why did you get involved?
Well, the
It's gender
CCC,
inclusive.
Inclusive.
yes.
Mhm.
I was invited in, and I believe I was invited in because of that reason, for the diversity, to have another voice, and to be a female pastor, and just to kind of share light and break down the stereotypes, so to speak. But I believe with the differences in gender, oftentimes we can bring something to the table that the other one may not have considered or looked at because of our differences and our way of thinking, or what we can bring that may be different. Um, and so I considered it an honor when I was asked to come in, especially when the group, I learned that they were really focused on integrity and just being another voice in a community that could be credible. And that really drew me in. Oftentimes, we, even as clergy, unfortunately, have lost credibility due to a lack of integrity. And so those were some of the things that really were foundational for me, as a clergy, and you know, and as a person in general.
Okay.
So everybody in the clergy, they all have a specific role. What is everybody's role in the group?
Well, I think you know, there's different offices, as you know, to you know, as it pertains to, we are a you know, a 501c3, you know, nonprofit organization. But you know, I think everybody, we try to focus on everyone's expertise, and you know what and what God has equipped uh, each individual for. And the thing that I like about this group is that we don't have people crossing over into areas that they're not skilled or God equipped, you know, to handle. And that's one of the things from my point of view that makes us unique. That we don't have this internal struggle. We're clear about, you know, who can do what, and all of us come with a servant's, you know, mentality, and a mentality to support, you know, to support one another in you know, in a genuine way. And so that's how I would speak to that. You know, as far as we're not position, you know, focused. We're synergistic in our approach of just getting everything done.
So, Pastor Lee, you have anything
Yes,
to?
I can't hear Pastor Calvin. I'm sorry, but is there a question?
The question was the roles that you guys play in the clergy, the different roles.
I figured he answered that. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but so we're somewhat eclectic in our ministry and our calling, in our experience, in our longevity here in Colorado Springs and in ministry and abroad. so the roles vary. We bring all our gifts and talents and skills and ideologies and philosophies together, along with our experience, and we move forward in that. I think one of the issues that has kept or prevented clergy or churches from working together in our city and abroad is because we look at the differences and the variety of gifting, and because they're not identical to ours, there's a term for that called homogeneous. Because we want to remain in this homogeneous group. In other words, everybody has to be like us, but that doesn't help anything to grow. If the sun was like the dirt, the plant wouldn't grow. If the water was like the sun, the plant wouldn't grow. So we bring all these gifts and talents together in order to meet certain goals and address certain issues.
Okay.
Nice.
So do you guys represent the same denomination?
No, we're all from different denominations. We've got Baptists, we've got, I don't like to use the term non-denominational, I like to say interdenominational, and a variety of others. And even if we were the same denomination, each leader of a specific denomination is going to have some different views and different thoughts and different ideologies and philosophies. So I think if I could just add something else, I think that that's one of the things that prevents our community and is preventing our community from moving forward is we just don't have this sense of unity. We all know that the black dollar doesn't even make it around one time in the black community. We don't support each other. We perpetuate the crab principle. And a lot of this comes from colonization, slavery, etc. But if we look biblically, we see that, for instance, Pentecost, the Spirit of God didn't fall until the people were unified in mind, in thought, and spirit. And the scripture says that when two or more are gathered together, in his name, then he is in the midst of them. The three-stranded cord is not easily broken. So the point I'm making here is that once we can become unified, there's nothing that we cannot accomplish. And the oppressor or dominant society, however you want to term, whatever term you want to use for that, understands that there's two tools that have been effective in our remaining oppressed. One is procrastination, and the other one is division or dividing us. And so people in status quo can afford to wait. We get tired. We'll protest for a little while. We'll scream for a little while. We'll be activists for a little while, and then we get tired. So they just procrastinate and make us wait until we get tired. But the real tool of the enemy is to cause division among us. They make you think that I'm saying something bad about you, or make me think that you're better than me, and on and on and on. And next thing you know, we're not focused towards the goal. We're focused at trying to cannibalize one another. And that is the biggest problem in our community, I believe.
If you see me, I'm sorry, if you see me taking notes, it's because I'm writing this stuff down. These are good words. I'm sorry, D, go ahead.
Pastor Murphy, did you have anything you would like to say? Or?
No, I agree though, and I also agree that that's what makes the CCC unique, is that we do not come from all the same backgrounds, the same denomination, the same doctrines, but that we can all stand together on the doctrine of Jesus Christ and the Word of God. And so, even though the overall history and background of our belief system, or some may call themselves being raised in church or not, but still giving their life to Jesus Christ and believing that the foundation of our belief is founded on the Word of God. So we could still come together and have that core value and that core common denominator, if you will.
Okay.
Well, and D, if I could chime in, I'd like
Yes, sir.
I'd like to comment. what Pastor Lee and Pastor Murphy said. One of the things that I think that the church has done is one of the things that I think we have forgotten is that as we take the gospel out, it has to address felt needs, and and sometimes we get, in my humble opinion, that kind of gets lost until there's an issue. And Pastor Lee said something that that I want to compliment him on, and that is he's a person that goes beyond the moment. So while everybody else kind of gets their 5 minutes of fame, that's just a Calvin Johnson description here, where there's a lot of life at the onset, but then it dies off. Pastor Lee has always been one of those guys that is carried on, when the spotlight is off. And so to me, that's where effectiveness is. And that's one of the things that drew me to connect with him. Early on, we grew up together, but to co-labor with him and to collaborate with him and to even be a person that would follow him is because, it's not about the limelight, for him. And it is about sustained action. And so to me, that's what's important. I think that's what we're going to see and that's what's exciting for me with CCC, is that we get an opportunity to do stuff that's beyond, the moment. And again, just thinking about, the Devon Bailey, incident and what is going on and the time that it's taken. Pastor Lee has proven to be at the helm even when the cameras were off and everything there to continue to get that going. And that is what I believe that the church has to come back to that place to where we have to have, a sustained commitment, that moves beyond just the moment, but we have that mission of discipleship, help change our communities, help change our city, our nation, and the places where we live.
You guys are on point. It's like you guys are leading right into the next questions that we got for you guys. So can you tell us, how do you see the role of church or Black church in the community?
Yeah, I can begin to answer that. Somebody else can pick up on it. I think that, it's important for us to understand our history. When I say us, I'm saying us as a people, but specifically in this day and time, millennials and those who are coming after the millennials. The church, the Black church, used to be the central point of Black community, Black culture. The church housed the school. The church housed what we now call social services and welfare. The church was what we now call the employment or unemployment office. All of those things were in the church. Some people know about Martin Luther King. Everybody knows about Martin Luther King, but very few people know the name Vernon Johns. So Vernon Johns preceded. He was before Martin Luther King, and we can learn something from the way that he went forth in pastoring that church. And so civil rights came from the church. The entertainers, most of them that we celebrate today, came from the church. And so people need to understand the power, the potency, the importance of the church. But instead, people, particularly those generations I named, are leaving the church, going after these other things that temporarily satisfy these shiny things that appeal to their secular carnal appetite. And I'm telling you, if the church would become what the church used to be, we wouldn't be talking about what we're some of these incidents we're talking about now. They would have already been prevented.
That is true.
Vernell, do you want to jump in or?
No, go ahead.
I would just echo what Pastor Lee says. I think one of the things, speaking, from the church's perspective, is I believe the church, especially the Black church, has to begin to think about its relevance, in these times and what's going on. And I think, as clergy, that's a discussion that we're going to have, because again, as Pastor Lee, so masterfully articulated, was the church was the cornerstone of everything that goes on. But even now, I think with the church, it's not clear of who we are. I think what we're to be in this time, how that should move forward, and even having what is our role in helping to move a Black agenda forward. Just to talk about our people right now. I just don't know that we have that kind of dialogue and we have that kind of collaboration, amongst the church. And then I think a definition is what does leadership in the church look like? We've got Dr. King and others, and that we can talk about. But even now, I don't think that that's even a discussion. What does that look like? I think we look at people sometimes who have a big platform or have a large congregation or whatever, and we automatically assign them leadership in the Black community, although that may not be true. And so again, I think we have to kind of come back to foundational things to even have that dialogue amongst clergy as to what does church leadership look like at this time, and what does it look like for Black people.
Pastor Murphy?
Well, I was just going to say that I think that's part of what we are looking for as the concerned clergy, is to kind of redefine that, what it looks like, the leadership, what Pastor Promise said. So together with Promise and both Pastor Calvin said, is as the concerned clergy, those are some of the things that we are looking forward to redefining and bringing back and bringing some exposure and taking the front role of that as to what the leadership look like, what's the role of us as the Black clergy and the Black churches. So that too is one of the goals and one of the 4 points of the Concerned Clergy Coalition.
Dope. So how does a clergy person join the CCC?
That is a great question right there. So I think I'll chime in. One of the things that we do is is a person has to be sponsored in, and we've adopted that philosophy because again, what we're not looking for is we're not looking for numbers per se. We're looking for people that have same commitment and people that are willing to truly be servants and to help improve life, from a kingdom perspective, as well as, from, and I'm just using, from our people's perspective. And so we want to make sure we get the right people, not just a lot of people. And so again, there's a vetting process, and then there's some agreement that has to be, there has to be a consensus, from the group about, who joins and when that takes place.
Is he the only one? Do anybody else know?
He pretty much said
I
it.
can't hear Pastor Calvin. Was the question about how do you join? How do you become a part of CCC?
Yes, sir.
Like any organization, and particularly in our culture, there's so many things that we have to focus on as far as improving ourselves and doing the laundry in-house first. So we're not exclusive in the respect of people joining our cause, but networks only work when you have the right people in the net. So right now we're focusing on the few of us. There's many people want to be a part of it, so they say, but this is real work. And so if people want to join some of the causes or be a part of some of the causes, we welcome that. But right now there's so much work we have to do to get us back, at least at a starting point, if you would. I wanted to say this too, is that back to your question, I think, Dee, about the church. People look at the church as just a place to get their soul saved. The church is holistic. It's a holistic place. That was the purpose of it. You look at the New Testament church in Acts, they had all things in common. Nobody went hungry and nobody went naked. There were no orphans. It was communal. And even the ministry of Jesus is holistic. He wasn't just about saving somebody's soul. He was about feeding people. He was about clothing people. He came to abolish that current status quo political system. He came to abolish genderism, racism, discrimination. So any ministry, any church that doesn't embrace those things, I question whether or not they're actually established on the foundation that Jesus established the church on. I mean, that's just a reality. It's in the book.
I like that.
Well, I have a question about what's going on today. What do you guys think are some steps that are necessary for us to get change? What are some of the demands that have been said that you think that would work or haven't been demanded for the government to make a change so that this systematic racism comes to an end?
I think we have to develop a different mindset. We've had this plethora and cornucopia of oppression for centuries, for decades and centuries, and we're always asking that same question: how do we change the man? And so, to me, that's like a slave going to the slave master saying, "Master, could you give us more to eat, or could you break us off a little bit of this, and that?" We have to learn to do for ourselves. If you look inside ministries or churches, there are 8 pillars that really make a society function. And if you look inside most ministries, all of those pillars are represented in there. It's the arts, it's health, it's a bunch of different things. I don't have time to go into that now. But we need to learn to do for ourselves until we can get the black dollar making at least going around at least halfway in our community. What good is it for us to go and ask people for something? We're the largest consumers on this planet. We consume more than anybody else, but we produce hardly anything. So until we get the mindset of doing for ourselves, supporting one another, that's why I appreciate this platform. We want to do everything we can to support this platform and bring it to the level that you guys want it to be at. We've got to do for ourselves.
So that's a pretty general, the do for ourselves is a pretty general statement. So what ways can we start pointing in that right direction to do for ourselves? Because there's a lot of different businesses and a lot of different people doing different things, and there is a lot of division. So how and what way can we bring everybody together as one body, outside, and and really start making steps into our goal?
If I could just jump in one more time.
This is all you. Let's go.
You make T-shirts.
Yes.
We shouldn't go anywhere else except for T-shirts. As long as you are giving us a good product. And if you don't give us a good product, we don't go and blast you and throw you under the bus, or like the young folks say, cast shade on you. We come to you which is biblical. We come to you and say, hey, here's what happened, and here's how I think you should make this right. Here's how I think you can do better. This podcast, this should be the first place we go for information. If we got something we want to communicate, we don't need to go to the Gazette or these other folk. Let's come here. Let this become the format. And we've developed this westernized way of thinking where the dollar, every time we spend a dollar, you look on the dollar bills or the hundreds or the 50s or 20s, what have you, there is a president who owned slaves. Every time we take a dollar and we spend it, not in our community, in other communities, we're perpetuating that mindset subconsciously of slavery. You see? And so we have to appreciate ourselves, and we have to support one another. But this westernized thinking, we're concerned about the dollar and that kind of currency. The best currency any society and the longest lasting societies have had is the barter system. You grow bananas, you grow potatoes, you grow rice, you grow beef, you fish, and we bring that together and change and trade. Then there are no needs. Now, when outsiders come in and want something, then we do something a little different there. But we can't even make the dollar go around halfway in our community. That's how sick we are as a people. And that's how long we have to go. And the last thing I'll say on that question here is that even in segregation in the 60s, we were crying that we lost a whole bunch there. We were crying to sit at the counter next to somebody else and eat a hamburger prepared by somebody else. Now, what happened there is economically, the mom and pop hamburger shops in our own communities suffered, because then we started thinking that their ice was colder than our ice. Their hamburger was better than our hamburger. And economically, we lost a lot of businesses. And it's the same thing now. It's the same mindset now. So until we get to that point, not much we can do.
That was a great answer.
I'm taking notes.
I mean,
Is there any
information? It's just basic information. And you young folks have the voice. You young folks need to be screaming this from the rafters. You young folks have the juice. You have the energy. You have the intellect. And what vexes me about millennials that they've got this academic, this intellect, this energy, but they don't want to sit down for 5 minutes and listen to the wisdom of the elders. If they would just sit down for a few minutes and concatenate the wisdom from the elders, we as a people would be unstoppable.
That is a fact.
Before we did we touch on everything that you guys, matter of fact, is there any cause, are you guys doing anything right now that us as a community can get behind and help right now to be a cause, to be a change?
The answer is yes. We're doing a lot of things right now. And as I mentioned earlier, some of those things won't come to the surface yet, but when they do, you'll be the first to know. But right now we're trying to develop a Black agenda. Every large city has a Black agenda. The Urban League years ago used to develop a Black agenda 5 or 10 years out. We don't have a Black agenda because people keep saying we don't have a Black community. And what they really mean by that is because there's no ghettos here. They associate a Black community with a ghetto. No, we don't have ghettos here, but we do have a Black community here. The 5 of us right now are part of this Black community. And so we really need to come together, get some people like-minded, because the right people in the net make the network work. And set a Black agenda. We don't have a Black newspaper. Somebody said we got the Southeast newspaper. That doesn't fully represent us. It hardly represents us. We don't have a radio station. We don't have a communication medium. We don't have any of that. We don't even have a restaurant that we can gather and eat at. We don't own anything in this city. Everything we eat, we have to go to somebody else's grocery store and beg or buy it. So that's your question, the Black agenda. That's the biggest thing coming up for us here shortly here is developing a Black or the Black agenda for Colorado Springs, El Paso County. And some people would say that that's racist. Why it's got to be Black? Well, there's an economic development chamber. There's this, there's that. You know, what's wrong with us developing something for ourselves?
When other communities have it for themselves,
Yes,
no difference.
they do. I'm sorry to monopolize the time.
No, this is great. This is what it's for. I'm being educated. Like I said, if you see me putting my head down and stuff, it's because I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes of all this stuff. Like this is a great platform. We have great guests to be educated. So I appreciate you guys taking your time to talk to us and do this.
And Chiba, if I could say something to the group here, again, Pastor Lee won't say this about himself, and I hope Vernell will verify this. Is that to me, he wouldn't say, but he's been a pioneer. He's been a trailblazer, in leading for a long time. You talking about real leadership. Pastor Lee has epitomized that, and like I said, of course, he wouldn't, he's never going to say that about himself, but all of us that know him, he's been here. He's been that kind of voice. He's radical in the sense because people want to sometimes, even for us as a people, we don't we don't like to to rock the boat, man, or we want to make sure we're kind of in the populist lines or the political lines or whatever, what have you. But when it comes to not only just being a voice, but also putting together a plan with objectives to get things done, Pastor Lee, has been a person that's been at the helm, and and like I said, and so again, I just think again that and I've said this before. I think we have just and kind of an absence of leaders like himself that can really help us develop and get where where we need to go. And and that's why I think the civil rights worked. Other times, because we had real leadership that was willing to sacrifice and do what was necessary and to really be involved in the community and do more than photo ops, and those types of things. And again, that's what I appreciate about the CCC. I believe that's what we're going to be able to accomplish. We're going to be able to get some things done, in that manner. And again, it's going to be it won't be traditional. It won't be, when you look at us, I don't think we're traditional pastors, and traditional leaders, whatever that looks like. But I think we'll be relevant. And I think right now that relevancy is critical for the times that we're in. And there's some stuff that's outdated. There's some traditions that were good, and there were some methodologies and that kind of stuff that were good. But change has to constantly be happening, and we've got to be constantly evolving, into what's necessary for the moment. And again, I just think that's a part of what I see CC doing. And again, with Pastor Lee, we talk about this often. That's what made me be a part of this organization, and it makes me kind of protective, if you will, or cautious about who joins it, because again, it's got to stay on mission, it's got to stay on purpose, and it has to create not just action and activity, but it has to have sustainability. And I just believe that's what we need right now. So I defer to Pastor Murphy right now for her comments.
I just want to piggyback with you with the relevance, because times are always going to change, but we have to remain relevant. I thought about what Pastor Lee was saying as far as the knowledge is concerned, but a knowledge not applied is just knowledge. So it's not enough just to know, but we have to be able to put what we know to use. Even as we talk about economic development and having our own business and things like that. So the knowledge that we get to be able to attain the money, to be able to do the resources, to get a building, to start a business, we have to be willing to put that to use, and to take the leap of faith and go ahead and put ourselves out there and not allow fear to keep us from moving forward. And as was said, continue to be enslaved or be a slave to the current reality that we see, but to be part of the solution and not the problem.
And if I can jump back in, guys, just real quick, on something. The Bible says something, and I think people, it leaves a question, but I believe it's for us to answer. It says, if the foundations be destroyed, what shall we do? And to me, the question is rebuild. Again, I hear a lot about Black Wall Street and that, and I tell people, well, let's rebuild it. Let's rebuild. We know
we can protect it now.
Let's rebuild. And I just think right now, that's what we have to, I think, connect ourselves with people, who are sacrificial, people who will stay involved in the work, and will be to me, using another scripture, is like Nehemiah. We look around, we see the devastation of what's going on. It's time for us to rebuild it. Stop waiting on government, as Pastor Lee said. Stop waiting on everybody else. Let's rebuild it. We should have an agenda where we own banks, financial institutions, those things there, to where we can be self-sustained. And I know people don't like to hear that, especially when it comes to sometimes this. When it comes to being followers of Christ. But again, when we're in a society that clearly, even in church, doesn't care about all people, we have to make our own way. And I'll say this: we don't like to talk about this, but one of the places we see racism the strongest is in the church. And so again, I just think we have to do some things in order to mitigate that, and that is to begin to emerge and let people now not be expecting us to look to them, but now when we build something, that now they have to look to us. That to me is the vision I have, to see things be reversed in this nation, to where the majority can now look to us at some point and recognize that we've built something, we've sustained things, as much as we have had to, that we had to incur, if you will, and we were up against, and we had to fight against. And that I would like to see us, build something that the majority and others would have to, take note of. Just like, like when I think about some of the countries in Africa, that I've been to, they have built something, that's worthy. And I believe that can be done here, in our, in our nation as well, and city and state.
Closing words from everybody. Do you have any closing words for everybody? And how can people get a hold of you or get some information to get educated about your group or whatever?
Couple closing comments. Two things, one on economics and one on responsibility. I advise, a spiritual advisor for some athletes, particularly boxers. Last year, a gentleman went without me to sign a contract, and he came back. He was a young fellow, great boxer. He was happy. And he told me how much he had signed the contract for. He told me how much he was getting. And he said, "You don't look too happy, Pastor." And I said, "The question you should have asked was, how much are you not getting?" He got a nice piece of change, but the promoter is making 30 times that amount. So the question is, how much was he not getting? So he's caught up into this contract for 3 years. And so responsibility, we have a responsibility as clergy, as people who have lived a little bit longer than others and experienced some things, to share and to pour into others. And responsibility for me means responding to one's God-given ability. And with that responsibility comes accountability. So you young folks should hold us accountable. And even the people you have on this platform who profess to be leaders, they have a responsibility, and they have a responsibility to do the right thing.
And you know what?
The way you get a hold of us is 719-635-6640.
And on what you said, Pastor, we've been talking in the last few weeks about mentorship, and I think that's why mentorship is really important, because that you have somebody right there to give you that guidance and that talking to before you make these rash decisions.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, being pillars and having mentors in our Black community. That's something that maybe we should, I'm sure it's out there, but maybe that's something that we can start putting together, like a mentorship or something like that, for cats. It's dope. Anybody else?
That's one of the other things we do is SEATO, Southeast Access to Opportunity. We believe that the definition of poverty is the absence of opportunity, absence of access to opportunity. So in CCC is part of this thing too. We mentor young boys in the community. We've got about 60. In fact, we're fishing today, some of them. And so that's what we do, is we do mentorship there. And
awesome.
Yeah, it's important.
Yes, it is.
Pastor Murphy, final answer, statements. That's an answer. Any closing statements? Closing remarks?
I think Pastor Lee said it all.
All right. Well, this is round 3 of the Be the Voice, Be the Change Town Hall meeting. We are so glad to have you guys here today. This isn't just, we're going to, after these town halls, our next goal is to get everybody registered, educated, to vote, to start some change. So as soon as these town hall things are done, you're probably going to be getting another phone call from us to help us out with some of that stuff and as well. And if you guys need any help at what you guys are doing, please feel free to reach out to me. I know you guys talk to D all the time, but if there's anything that I can do as well to help with anything that you guys are doing, my platform, everything is open. I have open doors for you guys. I so appreciate you guys for being here today. And when I say you guys, I mean ladies too.
I get it.
Okay.
We say we appreciate you persons.
Yes. So we just want to say thank you to everybody that tuned in today for the 3rd round of the Be the Voice, Be the Change Town Hall meeting. We'll talk to you next week.